Hey y'all, it's Russ, and I just wanted to answer the question, what is version control? Because we're going to be using GitHub for this class. We're going to be using it for turning in our assignments. And in this class, we probably won't have need for the version control features, but Git certainly has them. And I wanted to, before I showed you Git, I wanted to explain version control. Version control is a way of keeping track of a set of files. Usually it's used for code, but it can be used for almost anything. You keep track of a set of files, but you're keeping track of your history over time. And so this is an example of a project I've been working on with a student for, 5 or 6 months. And so we have 314 commits that have been checked into this repository. What is a commit? A commit is a little snapshot of the code at a certain point in time. Here's our current directory structure. You can see, there's files, there's folders. Each of these has a message. The message reflects the most recent change that's updated that file or that folder. And in the GitHub interface, you can traverse through this. You can take a look at files, and you can see, for example, what the contents of the makefile are. But the other thing that you can do is that you can go back here and you can look at the list of commits. And there are ways to get more detailed information, but basically, to the first approximation, this is a list of different changes that have happened over time. We can look at some of these changes, and we can see, oh, that's interesting. So in this case, we deleted one file, and we created a different file. So what you're seeing here is the list of all the changes that happened when that particular commit happened. But you can also, somewhere here in the interface, you can actually browse through the commits. You see, instead of at the master branch, we're now at a particular tree point. So we can traverse through and we can see what the code was at a given point in time. This is invaluable for complex projects because you can always go back to something that you had before. I actually did this just today. I was doing development of this class. There was a file that I regularly copy around in various points in my file tree. At some point, I deleted it because I thought I had 2 copies of it. In fact, I only had 1. And I went looking for it today. I couldn't find it. I thought, oh no, I've destroyed this thing. But then I thought, no, it's all in version control. I went back, I searched through the history, found out where I deleted it, and was able to restore the deleted file. Not only can you handle deletions, you can also, if you start making a change and then realize that you've made things worse instead of better, you can rewind, you can go back in time to an earlier version. Maybe you've made some good changes you want to keep and some other things you want to delete. You can mix and match code from various revisions. It's an invaluable tool. All software projects of any noticeable size use version control. It's especially useful if you've got multiple people working on it because now you're not fighting over one directory tree. Now, when we talk about version control, you do have to have this concept of a commit because obviously you don't want to track every single key press that happens, right? If you insert a space somewhere, you don't want to immediately save that away. And so Git has the concept of a commit, which is a point in time where you said, okay, this is something I think is worth saving. You put it into the repository. Once it's in the repository, it never goes away. You might change it, you might move beyond it, but you're never going to delete that commit. Now, once you get to thinking about version control, it's really going to change how you do development. Because I know what a lot of you do. You write and write and write in one file. Or maybe you're copying it to a couple of different places. And you work on it for days on end, and you've only got 1 copy of it, and at the end you hope that you've got a good version. But if you mess something up, or if you accidentally delete the file, or if, God forbid, your computer crashes, you lose all your work. And so when you start using version control, you need to change how you think. Instead of thinking, I'm going to try to get the perfect code and then I'm going to submit it as my homework. Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to be checking in code constantly. I don't mean every time you build. You should actually test your code. But if you've been working on it for an hour and you come up for air and you're just going to take a little breather, if you're going to go grab a sandwich or whatever, go ahead and commit your code as it is. Kind of the same way that we've learned that you should save your file in a word processor while you're typing it. You save often so you don't lose your work. In version control, if you save something with a commit and you later on decide it's a bad idea, it's not a problem. You can always go backwards. And when you get more advanced, then you can actually start talking about branches. Branches are where you can actually have two copies of the code that diverge, and they might be separate for days or even weeks, and then at the very end you merge them back together into one code base. Git has a lot of tools that will make that very, very useful. It's not something we're going to need in this class, but it will be something you're going to do later on as you get into the workplace. So I hope this was informative. I hope it was useful, and I will see you all later.